Welcome back to Natural AF. I'm your host, Isaac.
And I'm Alexa.
And this show, we dive into how to reconnect to nature and a higher state of being and deconditioning and getting all the clutter and all the programming out of our minds to free us up. In essence, it's all about freedom. Mm-hmm. And this episode, we interview a director, a filmmaker, and artist who is very much in alignment with freedom and uncovering what it means to wake up with his new film that they're working on right now called Anavasi. We're talking about Christopher K.
Yeah, this was such a fun interview. I think it's definitely up there with my all-time favorite interviews. We just had a ball chatting to Chris, and he's so aligned with us and what we're doing and vice versa. And yeah, we really implore everyone to support the film as much as possible because it is still in production. So all the links will be in the show notes for how you can support and get involved. We're going to donate what we can. Like Chris says, even $5 makes a difference. So the price of a cup of coffee makes all the difference when lots of people are doing that. So yeah, I can't wait for this film to come out, and we're definitely going to get Christopher on again in the future, probably before the movie launches, so that we can really hype it up and have another chat to him, because we could have just spoken to him for hours.
Yeah, it's really good to see someone of his caliber, and he is quite good at making films. Chris just knows how to connect with the story and make the imagery and the story really just link up and say what he wants to say. And I don't know, it just feels like he's really tapped in with the human spirit and what makes us come alive. And probably because he's alive, he's very much alive and not trying to fit in with the crowd, not trying to catch people's attention in Hollywood, but just make good film that's inspiring and people can see a little bit of themselves in.
Highly recommend you go and watch Grace. It's a beautiful short film. It's only about 20 minutes, so it doesn't take a huge amount of time. Take 20 minutes out of scrolling on Instagram and go and watch this movie. We've got the link in the show notes. It's really beautiful. I think people will really enjoy it. And I can totally see how it's award-winning and got so many nominations. It's just, yeah, really touching.
Yeah, definitely go out and support this project with Anavasi. I love seeing the freedom community stay together and working with all these different groups, all the different projects that are coming out. And film is one of the more important ones. We've talked about on this show how much propaganda, how much mind control and brainwashing goes through the film. So we need to get behind the artists that are broken free from that system, because they're not going to get any play from the other side. They're not going to get any funding, any publicity and all that stuff. And they need our energy. They need our support to put the truth frequency out there. We need to counteract all the garbage nonsense lies with the truth frequency.
Yeah.
So get behind that.
Yeah, that's such a good point to make too, because don't be one of these people, guys, that like complains about, and they're just brainwashing us in all the movies on the TV. And then you complain when people, independent artists and independent film producers put stuff out there and they need donations and they need support. And then you're like, but it costs money to, get the film out. And it's like, well, yeah. And when you don't compromise who you are and your integrity, that's the route you have to go down. So definitely get behind Christopher and what he's doing and the movie, because it's definitely going to be a really an amazing message in Anavasi. And I think the world needs to hear it and see it.
Yeah, it's very much in line with what we do at Natural Art Form. It's about producing the finest quality product, whether that's a film or whether that's social media content or whether that's a natural remedy. And I'm much better at making natural remedies than I am at making social media content. So if you're following me on Natural Art Form's Instagram or TikTok or whatever, it'll get better, I promise. And the better, the more friends I make, like Chris K, with proper filmmaking stuff, and I get inspired, the better my content will get, hopefully.
And of course, guys, if you're listening and if you're regular listeners, you know what we're all about at Natural Art Form with the products that we make and everything that we're doing over there. So as usual, if you would like to support us and support yourself, support your body and your health, and purchase anything from us via Natural Art Form, you'll get 10% off no matter how many times you purchase from us using the code NaturalAF10 at checkout. And if you haven't already, join the mailing list while you're on the website, and that way you can stay in the loop with everything we've got going on over there. there.
Oh, yeah. And just a quick announcement, guys. We are doing a lot of work in the fight space and Muay Thai, boxing, all of that. And we are now sponsoring one of our first athletes, Joe Dixon. He's out of Kyogle here, but not only that, we are also sponsoring a 10-week fight, a 10-week boxing camp out of Passage Fight Club in Byron Bay. My friends Joel and Andy down there, they're doing really good work, really solid trainers as well as pretty accomplished fighters on their own right. And they've designed a pretty awesome program. So I'll have more about that going out on our socials. So stay tuned and follow that if you're interested in martial arts and that warrior spirit. That's really getting me excited because I'm just seeing such a purpose for that, being part of what really men can do to cultivate a very grounded, very strong presence. And sometimes it takes getting hit in the face a few times to really learn what you're capable of. Can I move? Can I take a punch? Can I throw a punch? Can I hurt somebody, but not out of anger, out of just sportsmanship?
Yeah, there's definitely a parallel there with boxing, and I've done Muay Thai boxing, and it can definitely show you things about yourself that have nothing to do with the training. So I definitely agree that it is an important, can be an important part for men exploring their masculinity for sure. All right, without further ado, let's get into it because I actually didn't get to listen back to this one before we release it. So I'm going to be listening again with you guys because this interview was a killer. Like, it was so much fun. There was so many gold nuggets in it. Christopher's just a legend. He's definitely, we all feel like we're very soul aligned. Like maybe our souls, we've experienced other lives together. It's wild. So we hope you guys enjoy it as much as we did.
And hit it.
Christopher Kay is an Australian film director, producer, screenwriter, and editor. He is most well known for directing and editing the feature film Just Between Us. In 2019, he was nominated for an Australian Directors Guild Award, and his short concept film Grace garnered 7 international awards and 9 nominations. He has previously written, directed, produced, and edited several award-winning short films and webisodes across drama and comedy genres. In recent years, he has changed his trajectory, moving into the documentary genre, and is in production of his documentary feature, Anavasi, an inspiring and cinematic look at life's often unanswerable questions through stories of trauma, deprogramming, the collective unconscious, and the higher self.
All right. Welcome to the show, Chris Kay. So good to meet you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. It's awesome to meet you both too.
Yeah. We were just talking off camera a little bit about where you're at now down near nature in Melbourne. And that's so important in these days. And it kind of reminds me, so when you're putting out this film, we'll get into it in the show, about awakening. This episode is going to have a lot of talks about that, a lot of stories. How important to you is connecting to nature with your own awakening?
It's funny because it's come later in the mix. It was like, I think I needed to fully go through a dark night of the soul first. And I never got raised country. I was very much a city boy in terms of how I got raised, more suburbs than anything else rather than city. And I did have some relatives that had properties and stuff and friends of the family that I'd go and visit as a kid. And I always loved it. And I loved going away to school camps and those kind of things. So you had glimpses, but I feel like, as I've gotten older, and I think this does come with the territory, it's like you go through your 20s in your, going out phase, a lot more social, friends, cafes, bars, whatever your jam is. And then there just comes this weird turn where it happened with me, especially during lockdown when everything closed. And it was like, okay, so if everything is shut, then what is around for me to go and do? And like, you'd have little nature walks, but it was very much just very small little parks and stuff like that. And I've realized the difference now, the more I've been doing this documentary and the more I've been doing interviews with people, especially people who are Indigenous or people who actually live in nature and off grid. And you talk to them about it and you go and spend time with them. you see that basically nature's just the reflection of you. So of course, as your awakening process happens, there's going to be that juxtaposition where you're seeking freedom internally, therefore freedom comes back from nature to you. And that's what I feel happened to me in that order. And I think everyone's different. Especially I know people that were raised in that kind of climate from the get-go, and they're very, very different. And it's funny because I think anything that you're in, sometimes you can take for granted. You actually appreciate it more when you move to it from another world. So it's like you go from one to the other and you go, wow, this is something I always should have been doing. So now I'm just grateful every day for being close by to it. And I hope I can get to it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I had an interesting upbringing actually, because I kind of, when I was born, my parents were kind of living in the suburbs. So I don't really remember much of those years, but then we moved we lived by the beach for maybe, I think I was like, maybe for about 5 years, 6 years. And then we actually moved like semi-rural. So I kind of grew up until I moved out for the first time at like 19, kind of went suburban again. And then we moved to the inner west of Sydney. So again, very close to the city. And it was interesting because growing up in like when we were semi-rural, I actually hated it for a lot of those years being young, because I was like really far away from all my friends and I just felt kind of a bit isolated. And then so, fast forward to when I moved and was living really close to the city, loved it. Like you said, those ages when you're going out and you're with your friends and you start to form this identity of yourself that's more sort of individual and unique to you. And then I found myself, years later, like sort of in my mid to late 20s going, I just really want to move back to like nature. I wanted to, and I think because I had that sort of foundation, it was what was like calling me back, I found. And so it was interesting because, growing up at the time, I was like, I hate this. I just want to be close to the city and be close to my friends. And then as I got older, I actually really missed that. And I'm so grateful. I always express so much gratitude to my parents for actually raising us in that way, because we had such a great childhood. We were always outside and always playing with the neighbors' kids, like real old school. Like it's actually sad, but it's really not like that anymore, where kids grow up with, in the neighborhood and make friends. And I think we've lost that a little bit.
Yeah, we're in the transitional kind of generation, you know what I mean, where we've seen that pre-technology world and then we've seen the aftermath of it implemented and everything, and we've gone through both sides. And everything is pretty much by design to keep you. It's funny, they call it being connected when you're in the grid, but you're actually disconnected from what you're meant to be joined to, which is basically nature, which is a part of you. And I feel like the system's designed to do that disconnect. And it's if you look back at generations in different places, even in Europe, where they've got the longest life expectancies, they may still have houses and internet and Wi-Fi and technology, but they're basically working with the land. Like it's a part of them and vice versa. And you can see that gives them the longevity and everything else. But people who are in these rural skyscraper kind of cities in apartments where you're not even grounding anymore. And I lived on a fifth floor for a while, and it was horrific, because it's like you're literally just not in the ground and you feel like you're in a chicken coop with everyone else's Wi-Fi, around the clock.
100%.
That can't be good. It can't be good
exactly.
Yeah. So how did you get into filmmaking? Where did you step off on that journey, and like give me a little glimpse of you before then?
Yeah, sure. I've known I wanted to be a storyteller from a very young age, probably like age 5. So I was one of the lucky ones that sort of knew what they wanted to do. And even though I was mostly encouraged by especially my mum, who's very creative, I got pushed down that route of like exploring it more and, drawing and doing all different art forms. And the older I got, I remember when I got to that fork in the road that happens when you get out of high school, where it's like, well, I guess you're going to get a proper job now. And it was that kind of mentality. And I pretended that I was going to go and get a proper job, but I totally wasn't going to ever do that. And I kind of did the background stuff to make an income, but I was like, I really need to make things. That's what my oxygen is, and that's what keeps me going. And it's a matter of, I know the long game, because we're in a point now where like everyone who's got a camera phone, it's amazing the way technology's gone, where we can have this conversation now on a piece of software, and it's amazing. But there's also this mentality that comes with the territory where everyone thinks they're going to make something that's going to be an instant hit in 2 seconds, and whatever you do first is going to be the best thing that ever happened. And it's like, it's good to think that way while you're doing it, but everything's a learning curve, and it's not going to be great at the beginning. And I definitely wasn't. For many years, I was really terrible, and I can't even look at some of the stuff that I was doing. But it's a learning curve. And basically, what came out of the filmmaking thing, there was a shift on it where I loved making people laugh, and I made a lot of comedies. And I loved to basically implement my silliness and my inner child as much as I could into these kind of things, and found a bunch of other lunatics that were on the same page as me to do it with. And then it kind of changed, because I started realizing that filmmaking is actually it's a medium you have to take for a responsibility as well. So you've got to look at it that if you make something that does get out there, you may be influencing many minds to think, act, behave a certain way, deal with something in their own life a certain way. So I really feel the responsibility with that. And the more I did, the more I started wanting to make films of content that matter and that actually have some repercussion into the field, basically, of consciousness, to like put things out there that are going to help people heal, help them see life a certain way, and sort of give them that grounding. And that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, I definitely identify with the first part of that, where most of the stuff I put out, I'm like, should I have... I'm mostly doing videos for social media, but I like the comedy side too. I like being funny. What do you think about...
I don't think that part ever goes away, by the way.
Yeah.
Like that part where we always are very self-critical. I think that's what makes us keep striving to be better, like with each step. And it's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, no, it's definitely useful. And the internal voice has definitely gotten a little more collaborative and not judgmental. What do you think about, so when you were mentioning about affecting human consciousness essentially with film, yeah, we had our friend Aaron Bruin on who does script writing. And we talked a bit about that, a bit on the darker side with MK Ultra and mind control and that kind of thing. And as you were talking, I was thinking, how much of that is just what happens when you visually see something like that and you have an emotion that connects, where your mind is altered or pulled into a certain frame of thought? How much of that is just the way it is, and it's just kind of how all films are? Or do you think the MK Ultra or the mind control, the way they're pushing different agendas in film, that was like the purpose of making film in the first place, where it's just like, let's do this, Hollywood, their corrupt agenda, let's push this out to the whole world and popularize whatever agendas we want?
I definitely agree with that logic. It's very much, all films are propaganda films. That's what I've always known in my head, where it's like even the ones that are made for the greater good, if it's influencing a certain way of thinking, being, acting, or any of the above, it's a propaganda piece, right? Because you're basically putting a set of ideas into something to push someone's emotional state. And it doesn't matter which side it goes. It's, it could be positive or negative. But the way I look at the whole MK Ultra thing and how all of that comes about, which is still ongoing. Like, you look at Netflix and who's in charge of that, and dig enough into that, and you'll see, the link from Sigmund Freud to Edward Bernays, and then to Mark Bernays Randolph, who founded Netflix. And if you see any documentaries on him, he's always talking about that. Oh, it was so hard in the beginning, and it's like, well, you come from like a billionaire lineage, so I don't think it's that tricky at the beginning. Right. But these people are the ones that basically switched everything into the subscription model as well, where it's like you won't film anymore. And then it basically becomes like digital book burning. So now they've tried to boycott everyone to have DVDs and hard copies of things. Now they can go onto any streaming service and change things that they don't like. And with AI, you won't even be able to notice. And you'll go, is that always how it was? That's interesting. And it's sort of switched you to think and feel a certain way, even about your own memories, which is a real dangerous territory. But the way I look at it, and I think we have to kind of try and look at everything this way. If, for example, COVID and everything else, that came out with the whole, agenda on top of it politically to basically imprison, to brainwash, to do all those things. But on the other side, it has caused a complete spike in the awakening of positive consciousness on the other side, which, because of the polarity and dualism of the universe, that has to be the case. So with films in particular, you've got a medium that may have been started for nefarious purposes, especially through Hollywood. But then with that, there's a bunch of people who are actually quite good souls that just want to tell stories and get things out there. And then they're using that very medium for something that can then do the complete opposite and actually help people, live their life in a better way, or inspire them, or do any of the above, and bring much more of a love vibration. So I think there's always going to be a unique polarity in everything we do creatively.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, it's interesting because, now that, we always say it on this show, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So we really struggle to watch anything these days. And I actually hate watching new movies, especially if they're on like their streaming service productions, because you just see straight through it. The storylines are often terrible. Like the story itself just has no substance, and then you just see it's all product placement. It's the agendas in that they're pushing in the movie are so clear. And I actually often say now, I was like, we need to create like a truth and freedom based movie production company and start telling stories that we would want our kids to be watching and learning from. I think that I really do feel like a space for that is going to open up, and I really hope it does. I would love to get your take on that. Like where do you see it going sort of in our kind of circles that we run in?
It's interesting you say that, because the most fascinating part of where everything's gone, especially probably in the last maybe decade more so, I've seen this big difference. And like probably the last kind of films that I can remember where I was like, oh, that was a really good film. Pre-2013, somewhere there, it was like just before streaming really went crazy, and then Disney Plus and everyone started coming in and, reclaiming the space. And I look at that whole thing, and even people who aren't awake to it, they still don't really tell me that films are great anymore. It's like, hey, I saw this film, and you're like, how was it? And they're like, yeah, it was okay. Yeah. And that's all you get. You don't get anyone going, oh man, it blew my fucking mind. Like, you don't get that anymore.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've seen that shift, and I think it comes with AI coming into implementation. They're basically, they're making films via committee, which is the main one. It's like, how do we brand this and make money? Whether it's, when the superhero movies kind of started, there was some really good ones that were in the mix, and then it just became a brand. It became marketing like anything else, and then it becomes run by people in suits, and then they let the fans get involved in what wants to get made, but most people don't know what they want, and they just demand things and then still get annoyed. So you've got this whole over-involvement in it, and I'll tell you why I'm all for it, because I think like any collapse of an empire, it has to get totally terrible and completely train wreck itself to allow the space. It's like the death of the old self in us when we go through those experiences and we have to clear the rubble in order to build new foundations. That's what's kind of happening now in the film industry, from what I can see, where there's people that are still putting some stuff out there, and there are some okay films, but you really got to dig for them, because there's so many platforms, there's so much going on. And I think that we're opening up the space for that now. And a lot of younger filmmakers that I've been talking to in, like that are in the industry, but they're not disillusioned with it, but they just see it as, I don't want to make what's expected of me anymore. I want to make what I want to make, and I want to make things of change because I want to see the change out there. And when you start making films with the intention behind them, because like anything, like money, anything energetic, whatever your intention is as to what you want out of it, is what's going to come out the other side. And if your intention is to get famous, for vanity, for money, we need to make millions of dollars, we need success, we need this, that's all the old model. It's not for that. And those things can be a byproduct and inevitably come to you as well. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have success, but I think if you're putting things out there with pure intentionality in terms of, I want to put this out there to help people, I want to put this out to make people laugh, I have this story in me and it's my childhood story and I really want to tell it to everybody because it might help someone who was as traumatized as me, then you're really coming from a good place and moving into the right future, I feel anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, and it goes for anything, because I'm kind of in the, I don't even know what space I'd say that I'm in. Like, I guess you could say kind of coaching space, but working with people one-on-one and, healing, coaching, whatever. And it's the same goes in that industry. Like, you can tell the people that are in it just to make money, because it is, especially now, it's like, it's had this big explosion. You can tell a mile away when they're just in it for making money. They don't really care about how they're helping people or if they're helping people. And it's a huge difference. And especially if you are to work with those people, it's like night and day when you're actually working with someone that has a really good intention. And quite often, like in my case as well, it's people that have had their own experiences and have this wisdom to impart to others and actually genuinely want to help other people. I know in my case, it's because when I went through a lot of my stuff, I didn't have that person that understood what I was going through and could really guide me through it. So yeah, I 100% agree with what you said.
It's pretty much every industry. I do agree with you. And like, I know we have this very, I did for a while anyway. There was this view that I thought if everything could change, it'd be great for everybody. And we start having these platforms where everyone's on the same page. It's never going to happen because as soon as you open up a new space, and I had to see this firsthand. I went through an illness a few years ago, and I went through both sides polarity-wise of Western medicine and natural medicine. I saw the polarity firsthand where it was like, you sometimes have to go to a specialist for certain things that natural medicine can't do and vice versa. And I can't stand the Western medicine system. Like I really can't. That's a whole other side topic. But when I went to the natural side, I very much at the beginning gave up my power because I was in a very vulnerable state. And it was that thing of, someone will be able to help me. And because they're in the natural medicine industry, they'll be honest. They have to be honest because they're doing the right thing. Not the case. And it's like I found absolute angels in that whole industry as well, where I've like, and the interesting part was the polarity between them was the ones that I found were no good in my experience were using the previous business model. It was about, you'll need to take this every day of your life. And if you don't take it, it's not going to be good for you. And I'm like, that sounds pretty much what I was getting told on the other side, where it was, have this for your health. It's for your own good. It sounds the same to me. And then you'd get people who would do the thing of, we're just going to assist you. This supplement will assist you through this process. Whenever you have the fallback, you might need to go back to it. And they explained everything. And again, for me, it comes from that authentic place. Their intention is first to help people. And second, the profit from it is a byproduct. And it'll help them continue to be able to help people. And that's just a beautiful way to move into that space.
Yeah, exactly.
I worked in the medical industry a little bit. When I was in the Army, the first thing I learned day one, medical fundamentals, was first do no harm, right? Hippocrates. I thought it was interesting that they have to specify that right away because the whole system is harming everybody, but they're still like, first do no harm. And then it's like drugs, chemicals, garbage, lifestyle. You don't have to lose weight. Just take this pill. You don't have to lose weight. Just take this thing for your blood pressure. Like, you don't have to eat healthy, live healthy, move, breathe properly, like all of that. Just take our product. And natural medicine to me now, it's experiencing your body's amazing abilities, its innate abilities. And I just keep looking for ways to amplify that's already there. We have these innate gifts within us, these amazing abilities for our skin and tissues to regenerate, for our mind to like see and perceive, and this internal voice that you can actually find messages from plants and know that this is the right one, that's not the right one. There's people that are doing muscle testing. They can tell this remedy's right, this one's not. And we got the energetic side. There's so much more excitement. It's like the adventure has come back to me of this whole experience of life. And that to me is more what natural remedies mean more than the pharmaceutical or the chemical side. Well,
and that's what it should be about, right? Like quote unquote natural medicine. It really is. Like, I love what you just said, Chris, and actually seeing the difference even within that, the natural therapy space is the ones that are still operating under an allopathic model. And I've seen this again firsthand because I studied holistic nutrition at a college of natural health, but we literally were taught in that course how amazing allopathic medicine is, what the model is, how great it is, how we're part of that. And it is very much, it's funny because I did that course and I left and I was like, I never want to be a clinical nutritionist because I don't want to sit in an office and tell people, like give them meal plans and like tell them what to eat and give them prescriptions prescribe supplements because I've never believed that that is the way. Like, yes, it can be for a period of time if you need to support your body through something. But so many people go from the Western medical model to the quote unquote natural health space, but that it's under the same premise of, oh, well, I'll just have to take this supplement for the rest of my life. And they're taking like 10 supplements a day. And I just don't think that that's any way to live long term. And what Isaac is saying, what you said as well, like the ones that really get it, they understand that whatever we're giving, whatever we're prescribing, whatever advice that we're giving is to support your body in its own innate healing ability. Like that's the bottom line. And if you don't understand that within any kind of healing space, whether it's physical or metaphysical, then you're just not going to get, I believe, you're just not going to get the outcome that you're wanting or long-term benefit, because sometimes you get the short-term benefit and then long-term it just kind of goes back to what it was or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're still, I mean, as a species or whatever you want to call it, we're still figuring this out. Like it's like not even figuring it out. We're still remembering is probably the better way to put it.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is very much lost information that we've sort of had to climb back and get again. And it's not to say that everyone in allopathic medicine or Western medicine is the devil, because it's like if I break my leg in half, like I'm not going to put a bunch of crystals on it and pray for the best. So this will fit tomorrow. Like it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And there's amazing surgeons out there, and they've got their place, and they're really good-hearted people. I've met them in my life, and it's like that's what they've dedicated their life to. It's actually harder for them to see the industry they've dedicated their life to wholeheartedly is something that may not be for the best interest of the people as a whole. And, when it gets down to pharmaceuticals, that's where I draw the line, because it's like when something's a, $1 trillion corporation that runs through the entire world, that's when I start, just putting up the red flag. And it's like, we don't need to be depending on these kind of things. We really, really don't. And it's like, even as something as small as, people who get a niggle of a cold and go and get antibiotics, it's just madness. And you're throwing the whole body out of whack. And like, I kind of not got raised that way, but that was partially the mentality. And my parents thought they were doing the right thing. It's just like, this is what we do. But they also questioned a lot and taught us to, be discerning. Don't depend on things. Not every doctor, always go get a second, third opinion. And I think that applies even to the natural medicine side too. It's like, find the modality that works for you. It took me a while. And I ended up in facial reflexology, which completely changed what I was doing. Basically, I had a vagus nerve issue that no one could address.
Wow.
And that was the thing that got me over the line. And it was like, again, it's the same lingo that both of you used. It's like, it's not them performing a miracle. It's my body remembering what to do. And it's like they're giving it a jump start. You know what I mean? It's that we're just going to remind it what it needs to do. And then I did a bunch of sessions over whatever it was, 6 months, a year. And then I haven't been back since, because I haven't needed to. And if I have a problem in future again, I'm sure I'll go back. But it's like now it's in my hands to keep walking the healthy lifestyle and make good choices.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, it's amazing to see all these different modalities, all these different types, iridology, facial reflexology, things I haven't even heard of, it's or experienced, and hearing an amazing transition from where you were to where you are now. That's all a part of the awakening. And I want to tie that into talking about Anavasi, this film, this really creative, I think it's going to be a masterpiece of tying in a sort of, well, you can describe it, but it's not just a documentary, right? It's kind of a blend of a documentary with another style of film.
Correct. Yeah. It's basically, I'd call it, in a very coarse kind of way to describe it in a sentence, it's basically a guidebook to awakening and the processes and what kind of comes with it. And it's not going to be what people expect, because I don't think anyone really knows what to expect in that awakening journey, because each one is so individual to the person. And it's like, it's all your human experiences, your emotion, how you got raised, the traumas you've been through. It's all these things that shape us. And then our awakening process to higher consciousness looks different for all of us. So I've tried to ensure that, as much as getting 14 guest speakers on, that basically are a very wide brush of people that are former celebrities that can talk of their experience as being a celebrity, people that are cell biologists, people that a neuroscientist, and you go through each kind of layer of what it means, what it does to the body. You're talking on consciousness levels, but you're also talking about our third realm experience. And throughout this documentary, what's going to be shown with it is basically 7 narrative stories that will run parallel through all these interviews, where you will be able to put yourself in the shoes of a lot of people, or at least know people that are in similar kind of storylines to this. And I'm just really trying to give a really big snapshot of the human experience and keep it as not up to date as possible, because I realize trying to do anything and keep it topical is really difficult these days, because things are moving very quick. Like there's timelines just blowing by. And it's a matter of what can I put out there? This was always the question for me. It's like, what can I put out there to actually help people along the path, but to show them the main overall point, which is the integration? Because if you're going through all these higher awakening kind of vibrations and you completely remove yourself from society and go live in the mountains somewhere, you're not really going to learn too much after that point, because it all comes from the growth of being in that 3D reality, or being in the matrix and being able to visit between those two worlds. And once you're able to do that without emotional reaction, I think you're kind of on your way at that point. And that's kind of what I want to get across with the film.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, but honestly, something like that, I mean, obviously, I think putting it out at this time is very topical, like even just, looking at the last 5 years and what's happened. But something like that is also so timeless, because people have been going through this process of awakening for as long as we can remember, and especially like at this time, meeting people that kind of went through what, I feel like most of the world went through in the last 5 years. Like they did that like 20 years ago. And it's so interesting, because I think in some respects it was almost harder at that time, because they were really like the minority, and so many people thought they were crazy and whatever. But it's like this timeless sort of, I think it's such a big part of our evolution as human beings to go through that at some point in time.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about people who probably had their awakening in the 70s or whenever else, you know what I mean? And it's like, I think people are going through it, like on a collective level, we're going through it whether we know it or not. Like it's like even through our traumas as children and everything else, we're moving towards it. And it may not happen in this lifetime. It may happen in another lifetime. It could happen through your lineage of your grandchildren, and you're just planting the seeds in the early days. You don't know what shape it's going to take. Yeah. But I really feel sorry for those people that may have awakened a while ago, because you get so excited about it, you just want to share it with people.
Yeah.
And if there was no one to share it with, I'd just be like, what a night. I'd just sit there going, can you believe this? And they're like, oh, shut up. And you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
you want to feel that togetherness as well. But I was talking to someone about this the other day. The interesting part of that is I actually, especially these days, I don't think that we all need to be in the same space anymore. There was this mentality where we've got to move towards a community and build it in the same region and all get together in physicality. I think we're getting to a point where it's almost going to move to a telepathic kind of state the way it's going. It's just getting to a point where you can do the work on yourself, and because of that, vicariously, you're actually connected to the people who are on that same frequency as you on a worldwide scale. Yeah. And I've spoken to people where, they're in the middle of America somewhere, and I've like touched base with them, done an interview with them, spoken to them in the pre-interview, and they've basically had exactly the same experience as me. And I'm just like, this is not coincidental. It's like it takes a different shape, but it's very much the same plot points along the way. And I think that's happening to everyone, whether they know it or not. It's like some are, going to be quite shocked at certain points because they're pulling away from it and they're not allowing it to happen, or they're resisting. And then there's the ones who are ahead of it. And the key is when you're slightly ahead and there might be some family members or friends behind that are lagging, it's never a case of saying, I told you so, or telling them that you see, I've been saying you're stupid, aren't you? You can't do that. Yeah. It's a matter of you've actually got the perfect position at that point. It's pretty much just give them a hug and tell them it's going to be all right. And then look for other people who are already moved beyond you to give you a hug and tell you it's going to be okay. And it's like the more we do that, the better it's going to be. We're going to have a beautiful outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely experienced that. I've seen that. There's so many cool niche communities that are in this space. The confluence is going on in Texas. Music and Sky that I went to my first time in California. Even Owen Benjamin, the Bears and the Bear Fest that they've put together.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. And then the Living Free Festival here. And I'm sure there's others. So if anybody has any idea what other ones, let us know, because I'm
it's
keen
so
to experience them.
It's so cool as well, because people get to go. You can still live a life whether you live in the city or you live in the country, or you've got a totally different world, and you come together to congregate at one thing, and it creates a really big energetic spike. And then you just go back to what you were doing. It's like you're still on your path as an individual rather than being part of pack mentality, which is very much like the external worship kind of area, you know what I mean, where it's that thing of we need to be in a group to do this because there's a power outside of us that's higher and we're all worshipping it. I don't think that's a good spot to be. But when you all go as very empowered individuals to a group thing and you retain your individuality, I just think that's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been a big lesson for a lot of people throughout the last sort of 5 years and going through this awakening process. And you still see it sometimes, but I know for us, like me and my family, well, I would say for my parents more, because like they so basically, just to give you a quick rundown, my background is my parents, or my mum researched vaccines quite early on. So I'm the firstborn. So I was vaccinated as a child, had reactions. And then it wasn't until my mum stopped vaccinating me at around 4.5 years of age when she started researching and realized that I had actually had some pretty bad reactions. And she's never, my younger brother's never been vaccinated in his whole life. So we were kind of awake to that big pharma. We knew all about that. Like, so most of my life I've known about that.
Yeah.
So come COVID, that's mum was like, oh, this is the thing that they're going to do where they're going to mass vaccinate everyone, because they had spoken about that in these communities for quite a long time. They just didn't know when they were going to do something, to this scale. And so come 2020, my parents just went down all the rabbit holes. So that's when they started learning about like the quote unquote elite, or what does Alexette call them? The parasitic class. That's what I like to call them. The parasitic class, how they're all Satanists, the child trafficking stuff. Like they went down every rabbit hole, right? So throughout the last, 5 years, it's been this process of like really, really seeing, because this happened for me too, where I started seeing the whole world through a whole different lens, which is really trippy. Like it was definitely a trip. And there's so many stages, because when people say, oh, are they awake or are you awake? It's like, what's awake? Like there's so many levels to it.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you start seeing everything through this totally different lens, it's kind of difficult to go from this old paradigm straight into a new paradigm, because you have to go through the stages of, and I think that's what people have found, and you still see it, is that they try and move into this more truther, freedom, quote unquote space, but they're still operating under that old paradigm where they're looking to a savior. They're looking to people to give them the answers. Totally. And it just doesn't work. And a lot of the time they're also stuck in like anger or grief or sadness, and they just get stuck there and they can't move forward, because you really can't operate under a new paradigm following that old world model.
Yep, that is so beautifully said. And that's exactly the thing, where it's a rite of passage and everyone's going to go at a different pace. Anger's the biggest one. And I was there. Like I 100% was there for quite a while, where it was, you start learning about it. It's like the truth will set you free first, it'll piss you off. It's that old thing.
Yeah.
Like you get really, really mad about things. And it's like that inner, you want to balance the justice. You know what I mean? It's like, this is fucking unjust. This can't be. How dare they do this?
Yeah.
And then a lot of people don't leave that space. And I realized it was at one point where I had my turning point on that, where I realized if I am going out there putting the fear of Christ into people who aren't ready to hear what I've got to say, I'm the mouthpiece for the people I don't like. I am going out there, I'm creating a low vibration, and I'm also participating in segregation, which is what they want. They want you to be separated from your fellow human. And that's exactly what was coming through from me. And I'm like, oh, wow, I'm their puppet without even realizing I'm their puppet. And that was when I had that shift out of that space. And I think it goes to a point of, you can go into analysis paralysis as well. There's some of those rabbit holes, like you can spend a lifetime in there looking at constant content. And I always find that the application of the knowledge is much better than just the knowledge itself. It's like if you get something, it's like, how can I utilize this? How does this change anything about me in a positive way. And if I'm just going to watch it and it's going to anger me and I'm going to get nowhere and start yelling at the neighbors, I really don't think it's a good thing to do. You know?
Yeah. So how far out are you from releasing this documentary narrative awakening journey?
So it's been a process. Films do take time, especially one of this caliber, because it's very big. It's a big project. It's the biggest thing I've ever done. And I'm looking to release it at the start of next year. Okay. And that's the aim. If you had to, bring that up in court like 6 months later and go, but you said that, I'd deny it. I would deny it. But I'm aiming for that space, and it's moving in that direction. It's basically been a matter of, it's taught me a lot of patience. I've been a 0 to 100 kind of person most of my life. If I get an idea in my head, I'm a freight train. There's no stopping me. And in human design, I'm a pure generator as well. So that's one of the other things that comes with that territory.
Yeah.
And I sort of can go without a break. And after I went through that little health crisis of mine, I've realized now, much like in a meditative state, there's got to be cycles of it. I've got to burn the energy to do a bunch of things. And then if I don't stop, something will stop me. Mm-hmm. And it won't be pretty. So it tells me that, and I know to listen at that one now. I don't wait for the punch in the face. I wait for the little excuse me, and I'm like, okay, I better back off. And I go and do some other stuff and some planning and bits and pieces. So I've got 4 interviews to go. 3. And we're basically shooting all the narrative components in like late winter, spring, like around that season this year. And still raising funds at the moment. We've got 4 executive producers on board. We would love more to come on board because like it does get quite expensive to film things on a big scale. And, I just want to do it to the best as I can. It's going to come out one way or the other. Like there's never going to be a point where it's like, well, that didn't work. It's like, it'll happen. But the right people come along at the right times. And I've realized even with the financing side of stuff from early on that I kind of set the hard benchmark for myself on purpose because I knew that I would never sell it out, and I still won't. It will be, my last breath before that ever happens. And the main reason being, I was in the film industry for quite a while, and, I had a feature film out in 2018 that went around Australia and stuff and went overseas to a couple of countries, and it was all well and good. But there was something kind of missing from the process for me because I was like, is that all there? I just want to move on to the next thing. It's like once it's done, it's not mine. It's out there. It's finished. And the ego sort of can kick in at that point. And I saw that, in those circles start happening with people. I'm like, this is really interesting how people kind of change when these things happen. And it's the nature of the industry. And I realized myself where it's like, if I'm making this film, Screen Australia and those government bodies, they can fund projects like this, but I won't take their money. And the main reason being you can't really make a film about, hey, here's a documentary about deprogramming and awakening proudly brought to you by the Australian government. Right. Probably not going to go down well with people. So I thought, it's something that has to be done by the people and for the people, which is always a harder road, but I think it's worth it in the long run. So that's the trajectory that it's on now.
Yeah, I love the idea of crowdfunding. And I know it's right up there with the topic of awakening because we're both going through that, experiencing an awakening around shifting our beliefs around money, both consciously and subconsciously. Very powerful stuff is happening, but it's work, and it takes some letting go of different things, but also opening up to the abundant gifts that are here. And people have been talking about this stuff for so long, about manifesting this and that. But where are you at now with all of that, with like manifesting the money and all that stuff? Because it does take that to make a film come to fruition and to be, it costs a lot of money to make film. But where are you at energetically with money? What has this process taught you about attracting it in, so to speak?
I'll give you a very quick side story because I had a rechecked lesson not long ago, which was really funny. I went to a sweat lodge and I went and did it out in the middle of the mountains with a group of people. And I had this moment on the way back. I've always had a thing with animal totems, right? So I've always had this thing with every kind of quarter of a year, I sort of get led by a different animal or an animal's energy. It's like, for people who don't understand what I'm talking about, sorry, but it's something that's always been in my head a lot, where it's like I feel it in the spirit. Something will present itself. I will see the most random animal in the most random places. Like, it does not belong in that picture. And I know it's like it's there for me at that point to tell me something. And I asked for an animal while I was in that sweat lodge. And as I was leaving, I took a moment to myself off this property, a really big property, and there was a double rainbow that was stopping right where the gate was, the exit gate. And it's one of those, on a country property, you have to get out, open the gate, drive past, then close the gate behind you. And I did that, and I turn around and I see a little rabbit, a little brown rabbit, just sprinting around on the road. And I was like, it gave me that lesson instantly, where I knew it was like, okay, I have to be nimble. I have to outrun the predators. I'm going to have people try and hunt. It's all these little lessons. And I was like, this is really cool.
And have lots of babies.
I'm still awaiting my Maury Povich appearance next week. There's an old reference. Holy shit. Yeah. So it was about 2 weeks later, I went for a walk in the bushlands near where I am. And I was like, I'm going to try and manifest a rabbit, like just total arrogance, right? And I went into that mentality of like, I'll make this happen. And I'm telling you, every animal just left the forest. There was nothing left. I was looking around. I'm like, wow, like it's really given me a lesson in humility here. And it was when I stopped looking and totally gave up and went, you know what? What am I doing? Whatever happens, happens. And I let things go. And I felt that release feeling. And I started walking back to the car just in a flow state, listening to music. I saw 3 rabbits in about a minute.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, what lesson's in this? And I went home and I pondered on it for a while. And I thought, well, this is the same lesson. And I'm coming back to your question, Isaac, about money, is that when you're forcing things or willing them to happen in desperation, arrogance, ego, trying to get things to happen, and you're pushing against the tide, it's not going to happen. If you just stop and float, it ends up coming to you when you're least expecting it, out of left field from a totally different avenue. And that's been the process of the film the entire way while I've been funding it. There was the first investor came on board was someone that I knew for quite a while. He was a good friend for about a year. And they came on board, and it was like we set the intention. We had a really special moment about it, and they came on board and they said, I want to support the film. I believe in you. I believe in what you're doing. And then the second person who came along, who I won't get into too much detail on this, but there was a lot of my body saying no, and I can't explain what that was, but it was in the gut. It was right in that area of the solar plexus and the sacral, and it was like, don't take the money, don't take the money, and it kept saying it to me. And the reason was, it was more around, I could feel the ego seeping through. I knew there wasn't the right intention behind the money they wanted to give. And I was like, something's not right. So I turned it down, and it shocked them. It was like, quite a bit. And I was just like, no, it's good. That's fine. And I put it off. And literally within, I want to say 4 days, I did a podcast, and I got an email about a day later after I did that podcast talking about investors. And someone reached out to me with the most beautiful email I've ever seen. And I was like, it seems legit. Like, it's not a scam. It's too well written. It's not ChatGPT. I can see that this is from a person. And I reached out to them, and they said they wanted to donate a largeable size to the film and help put it out there. And I thought, look, I'm going to reach out to them. I'd love to catch up with you. Please let me know how I can get in touch with you. Turns out they live 3 streets away from me.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And this is like on an Australia-wide podcast where it could have been anywhere. There were 3 streets up the road. And it was like, by me saying no, that power of no to that person to stop the wrong energy, it allowed space for that right one to come in. And I feel with manifesting or generating, which is what the word I'm using these days, it's like co-creating and generating. I think I prefer more than manifesting these days, because you actually have to do the work by being in your flow state in order to magnetize what you need from the purest intention. And I think what you put out, you will get back, and it won't come in the form you're expecting, but the universe has got you. It really does have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally agree.
I so relate to that too, because I was one of those people that I was very trying to always control my reality. I think because in a lot of ways I felt so out of control within myself. So I tried to control everything in the external. And that was a huge, huge lesson for me, was to let go. And, you know, probably over like a space of, I don't know how many years it took me to really realize, because then I kind of got a clear gauge for like before and after. And when I stopped trying to control everything and just let go, things would just happen. And then the more that I experienced that, the more I was able to completely, fully trust God, the universe, that things are, you know, working for me and not to me. I used to be one of those people like, why is this happening to me? Why does this always happen to me? And the more I trusted that, like, and we've both experienced this as well, like things in the business and even the podcast, like the way that things will come in, like you said, it's totally unexpected. It's like you couldn't even make it up, like the way that things happen sometimes. And they're just so perfect. They're just so right. And at the right time, like you always get what you need at exactly the right time.
Yeah. And it's absolutely magical. It's one of those things where even I got pulled up by Jim Brewer when I interviewed him for the film. And I was talking to him on the phone, and I was talking about, basically manifestation and synchronicities and those kind of topics. And I kept saying, oh, it was just so weird and wild, and using these words. And he's like, I've got to correct you there. He goes, it's not weird at all. It's magical. He goes, it is how things are meant to be. That's how we should be functioning all the time. And since he said that to me, I'm like, yeah, I truly believe that. It's like all the rest is the wrong way, where you're trying to force things against their will. And that pure flow state of things coming in and out just like effortlessly like that, that's how it should be. That's what we should all be sort of aiming for, I think, as much as we can.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. It's cool you got Jim Brewer on there. Did you guys do that in person? Did you guys have to travel for that?
I had to do that one remotely. I had a camera team in Miami, luckily enough, who could drive over to him because he's like on the other side of Florida. So they were able to go over there, and then we basically filmed it live, but also did it remotely. So I got to communicate in the lead up and stuff. But that was an experience, man. It was really cool because it's like you go from, he's just such a humble kind of human being where as soon as you speak to him, it's not that thing of like, oh, I'm a celebrity, I'm up here. And it's just, he does not have any inkling of that in him whatsoever. He's just a beautiful, beautiful human being. And a very strong-willed one at that, you know, from the way he's been outspoken and to the slings and arrows he's taken over the last 5 years. I tip my hat to him. He's got a lot of courage, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I always say it, like in this day and age, like the people that have been like slandered in the media, they've had like, you know, they get all the like shit put on them, and like it's like a badge of honor now. Like if that's how the mainstream's treating you, like that's, you're on the right track.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, that whole thing is wild because Jim Brewer, comedian, I haven't followed him as closely as I did Owen Benjamin, but I know those two connected at some point and chatted about that. But comedy is really powerful for awakening as well. A lot of these spells that people are under can be broken in a second with a joke, where they can actually wake up and realize like, oh, it's okay to be on this side of the fence as opposed to this. And so comedians like Jim Brewer and Owen Benjamin, they do this stuff all the time where they'll make these jokes and it tells the story. It awakens you or opens you up to this possibility to laugh. And it's like that energy's healing almost. Like laughing is like you're releasing stuff. It's fascinating me.
Most comedians are actually super, super intelligent on many levels. And if you look back at even like, you know, the court jester days back in palaces, they weren't just the clown, they were the spy. Like they overheard everything the king and queen were talking about. They were swapping war secrets and doing all those kind of things. So it's sort of like, yeah, they're a clown at the front, but they've got a lot of really profound things to say a lot of the time if you dig. And that can go in both directions. There's some comedians who try and push it the other way. Right. But you know, people like Jim and Owen Benjamin, they're masters of their craft, but they're deep spiritual thinkers simultaneously. They're able to access the field and sort of tap into that. And humor very much does disarm a lot of people. I think even in our own scenarios, if you can laugh during some of the most traumatic aftermaths of your life at something that happened and find the humor in certain things, you're on your way to healing when you find the ability to laugh 100%. Again. If you don't laugh for a long time, it's not a nice place to be.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. If you're taking life too seriously, that's never good. And we always, I think we've said it before on this show, like, if you can laugh at like some of the worst things that have happened to you, you're definitely on the right track. Like there's a well-known story now. My mum's gonna die. Actually, it's fine. I think most people have heard this story now. She died when it first got out, but now it's everyone, like, we think it's hilarious. So back in 2020, when my parents were going down all the rabbit holes, freaking out, like they're going to send the army out and like force vaccinate us and all this stuff. And so my poor mum went through this period of like months. I don't know how long, but I want to say like 6 months to maybe a year, where maybe it wasn't a full year, but every time we went over to visit her, she'd sit us down, she'd be crying, she'd be like, she was a mess. Anyway, one day we go over for a family dinner, and me and my brother and I think my sister-in-law was there too. And she sits us down and she goes, all right, so your father and I have spoken, and we're not going to let them do this to us. Like, fuck that. We'd rather die. We're going to die than go along with that. So if things get really bad, it'll be like a, what do they call it? Murder-suicide. She said, I'm going to kill you guys, and then I'm going to kill myself.
Just right into it.
That's if things get really bad. And we were just like, you've gone mad. Like, that's not going to happen. And so I don't think she was 100% fully like gonna do that. Obviously we laugh now because then the story started getting out, because obviously years later, and everyone just thought it was hilarious. And now we laugh because we're like, Mum, that never would have happened. If you had shot all of us, you would have gone, oh my God, what the fuck have I done? And then you wouldn't have been able to shoot yourself, and then you wouldn't have been able to live with it. Yeah.
No, she wouldn't hurt a fly.
No.
It's like, yeah.
I think in those scenarios, firstly, it sounds like we've got exactly the same family, to be honest with you. That's it. I'm like, I can very much relate to this story. But I think the people who speak it out in those throes of like they're really passionate about it, they're the ones I'm least worried about. It's the quiet ones who do okay, we'll see what happens then. And you're just like, like that's when you start worrying,
exactly. Yeah, what's your background, Chris, out of curiosity?
In terms of like nationality kind of thing?
Yeah.
So on my grandfather's side, I'm Greek on my grandfather's side, and my mum's is like a mixed bag. There's still Greek in there, but it's like mixed up with like, the Yugoslavia and bits and pieces on that side.
Oh, that's like me.
Yeah, so it's like, and my dad was born here in like 1952. So like it's been an interesting duality of a lot of different worlds. Like I always considered myself in high school like the guy in the prison movies that could get you the weapons that you wanted. You know how they always go to that one person who knows that gang and that gang and that gang, and he's just done with it. That was me. That was me at high school, pretty much. So yeah, I got to see a lot of different cultures growing up, which, in Australia, it's something that is always apparent, but it's so much better when you're able to witness it close up and, go to friends' houses that are Chinese or Indian or whatever and see how different family units operate. And I think it helps you a lot when you're younger to see that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was curious because, it's funny actually, because my dad is Eastern European. So he's Serbian through and through for like generations. And my mum's also a mixed bag. So she's got a Greek grandmother. So her 4 grandparents are Greek, French, Palestinian, Lebanese. And she was born in Egypt, and she's done the ancestry thing, and she's got like everything. She's like a real mixed bag. And I was just curious too, because you said you kind of were raised with like your parents sort of encouraging you to question things. And as I come into Australia, he's like, man, the wogs are going to save Australia. Like, they're the ones that are going to get us out of this shit.
It's anyone with those lineages. It was like they were called paranoid for about 50 years. And then all of a sudden it's like, you may have a point. It's like, it only took 50 years till we got here.
These people have a genetic memory that like their own governments and other governments are just like slaughtering people and, forcing them into the army as conscripts, all this stuff. Australia's no different. The U.S. isn't any different. You don't go out and just blindly trust everything they say and be like, oh, put this in your arm. It's good for you. Like,
it's funny, man. I reckon there's so much genetic carryover like that happens. That's the like intergenerational traumas and stuff that really come through at a cellular level. I thoroughly believe in that. And I mean, scientifically, it's proven these days. But you look at like what lineage you like, or what country that your ancestors are from, that like as far back as you can kind of follow it, you know what I mean, within the means that we've got. And you see what happened to those countries during that time, whether they were war torn, whether there was a civil war, whether there was something going on. And the main theme of the day, especially through most of Europe, was government fuckery. Like it's there, you know what I mean? That's the biggest one, where it was like, don't trust. It's like they went through poverty. I've never been hungry a day in my life. But I know my mum went through poverty at a very young age, like till the age of 6 or 7, before they came here. And on my grandparents' side, they would have gone through world wars, poverty, everything else. So there's that mentality of the government aren't always for our best interests. Maybe we should just ask questions. But then you look at places like Australia and how young this country is, of what it's built on, how everyone is actually not from here anyway. And it's basically like this melting pot of experimentation where everyone's come in and had an easy ride for a long time. And then it's a question of, can you be bothered raising up? And it's like, that sounds like a lot of work. Like there's just no, you know, and it's like we're sort of responsible for that too. It doesn't matter how many generations removed you are. I think it's in the culture. The she'll be right mentality is a dangerous one. It's also got its place where it's like, it's good to not worry about a lot of things and not be an over worrier. But there's times where it's like, defend your doorstep and defend your own. Like if it's going to come to the death, it's like, I'll be standing at the door with a shotgun, no problem. But that's, I think that's just in my blood. You know, that's something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been actually very interesting to see over the last few years, especially is we met. So there's a lot of my family on my dad's side that like didn't get the jab, kind of sniffed that there was some, you know, even if that they weren't really, you know, quote unquote conspiracy minded or anything like that, they were just like, nah, we're not doing this. Like the government's telling us we need to do this, we're not doing it. And then we met through the sort of, you know, freedom movement and these sort of fringe groups. We met so many other Serbs and Eastern Europeans, and it was so interesting because that's what we talked about. It's like we have this genetic memory, even if we didn't live through that. Like I know my grandparents left Serbia because it was completely war-torn by that. Like they completely broke up Yugoslavia. And even though we didn't live through that and my dad didn't live through that, there's something in us where we know like that this happened. And yeah, it was just interesting to see how many people from that particular region were just like, nah, we're not doing this. And not even just here, like even in the States and stuff, we've met people from different backgrounds. And it's interesting. Even a lot of Jewish people that went through, like from the Holocaust days. Wasn't there, you were talking about someone recently that was talking about, or like it's in their family lineage, and even they were like, this is all bullshit. Like they can see the same things happening. They're like, this is bullshit. Because it's the same playbook, right? It's the same playbook. They just use it over and over again. Different regions, different circumstances, but it's the same play.
Yeah, totally agree. And like one of the people I interviewed, she's a trauma counselor, Julie Santel, and she basically does like trauma-informed holistic psychotherapy, so that kind of level of stuff. And she's a really brilliant human being, and I got to speak to her for quite a few hours. We're good friends now too. And she told me a story about her. It was going back, I want to say it was a couple of years ago, like the last 5 years have been a blur, but I think it was a year or two ago. But there were these massive storms in Victoria out rural that a lot of trees went over, a lot of power lines. Like there were people who lost power for quite a few days. And she was in the midst of that because she's right out in the middle of nowhere remotely. And she's pretty well balanced in terms of, you know, in the face of chaos. Like she's normally pretty good, and she's a survivor and a warrior. And she went into a full-blown meltdown, panic attack, you name it. And she couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And being a you know, a counselor, you sort of give yourself, you know, you go through your own self-counseling of why am I feeling this way? What's wrong? What's going on? And her daughter's the one who pointed it out, because Julie's mother actually had to flee a war-torn country. And it was, and obviously, and when the way Julie explained this to me, she goes, well, each woman's already born with the eggs that she's going to have. So at a cellular level, you kind of are already in your mother's body before you're even conceived. In a roundabout way. And she goes, everything I was tapping into, I could feel was from my mother outrunning a war-torn country where buildings were falling down, trees, power lines, no power. And she's tapped completely back into that energy. And once she recognized it, the feeling went away, because it was that thing of, I know where it's from. I can feel where it's coming from now. It's misplaced, and she was able to move through it. And I think that happens with a lot of us. Some of us who may not know our parents or our lineages, we don't know where things are certain things are coming from. And it's like, it's not necessarily diseases and those things that get passed down. It's the trauma in the cells that's getting passed down, hence causing the disease sometimes as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fascinating topic. And I mean, this is a big part of what it means to be conscious and awake. When you actually connect to that and meet that, then you can release it. But if you don't, it gets stored in the body, gets stored in your energy field. And
I think it's such a huge part of the healing that we're doing now, even collectively. And you can see there's just a lot more coming out about it now. And on both sides, or kind of like the scientific side, like the more, I don't want to say mainstream, because even in the science world, that's kind of very fringe. But like the work of Bruce Lipton, I'm finally reading his book, The Biology of Belief. And he was just talking about how he was pretty much like excommunicated from the science community because he started questioning things outside of that. And he always had such a strong belief in God. It's not like the scientism as we know it now, which is like atheist and everything's about science and the physical world and whatever. But anyway, I digress. But all this stuff coming out now about how important it is to heal our generational trauma, because we carry that whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not, it's in us and it's in our DNA, and we carry that. And the less conscious we are of it, the more we're going to pass on to future generations, and then they're going to have to deal with it, and they're going to have this huge load. So that's been a huge motivation for me and Isaac, because we've done a lot of this work together. It's been a huge motivation for me, like before, like preparing to have children, because I'm like, I want to heal as much as I can. It's not to say I'm not going to pass anything on to them, but having this knowledge now, like you said earlier, it's knowledge needs to be coupled with experience. That's literally what wisdom is. Wisdom is taking knowledge and turning it into experience. And I think it's so important for us to do this healing work so that we are setting up the future generations to do better. I think a lot of us have come in and we've kind of been, I don't want to, not that we're victims to it, but I think this, again, this is part of the design, is to keep us in a state of perpetual trauma. And I didn't fully understand that before. Now I totally get it. And that's what it is. It's like, just keep passing it on through the generations. And that's what they do through film and TV and music and all these things, where we're just like constantly, it's like a barrage of conditioning and stuff to keep us out of our becoming who we're meant to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny, like that whole thing with epigenetics and, the cell biology at that level. And I love Bruce Lipton's work as well. And this is definitely something, even with leading by example, where it's like, it's not even necessarily healing those parts of yourself to have children. It's like heal those parts of yourself for how you show up every day in society. Where it's like, you're literally the walking example, you know what I mean? And you're flawed, and you've got parts to improve, and we all do. That's what we're here to do. And the more you do that, and the more you're present with it, the more I think other people may follow you out. I think that does more than basically telling people how they should live their lives or what they need to do, because that sort of still comes with a fear vibration attached to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's that thing of, no, this is how we're leading it, because easily you could panic, go and have children away in the middle of nowhere and tell them that everyone's out to kill you, don't drink the water, be careful, you're going to die. And it's like, that's a horrible place, vibrationally to raise children, where it's like, again, it comes from the inner empowerment. And it's basically saying that I state the case of what may or may not harm me. And this is my complete jurisdiction. It's natural law 101. And it's like, once you couple all these things together that we've been turbo learning in the last few years, I really see, humanity and society on the right track. I know there's a lot that's still collapsing, where people are looking at it going, oh, it's going to be a shit show. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But we don't really know anything, because from what I'm seeing now, I'm seeing better outcomes now and more harmonious outcomes in people. Even to the point where they may just be asking their first question that they haven't asked for 40 years of their life. And now they're like, what more is there? Why am I working like this? Why am I doing this? Why do I do this job I don't like? And blah, blah, blah. And they start really facing that. I'm seeing that in abundance. So I think we're all moving in the right direction, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what it's like? It's like imagine a mighty eagle that has ropes and chains all bound on it. Its wings are kept down, and it's just walking around on the ground. Its whole life, it thinks that's what life is, just walking around on the ground. And then it starts to question, I've got these things, but I can't open them fully. And then you start to be aware that there's something binding you. And these different ideas or beliefs, or even like lies that we tell ourselves, like, oh no, I'm not supposed to spread my wings. If I spread my wings, I'll look different than all the other guys that are out there. Then I feel uncomfortable, so I'm going to go back to this. But if you keep questioning and keep pushing, keep expanding, you realize at some point you can take off the chains. You start questioning, how do I get rid of this chain? How do I get rid of this rope? How do I do generational healing? How do I, fix something in my mindset? How do I become more truthful, more honest with myself and the world? And then at some point you're going to spread, and then you're going to start to fly, and you're going to get the hunger for it. You're going to want to go further. You're going to want to go higher. And that's this amazing awakening journey. There's so many facets to it.
Totally. And, all the eagles that are on the ground, once that one's achieved its flight and they've got their chains on, they can't necessarily take them off instantly, but they can go, oh, okay, that one can fly. How do I do that? And then they've got to find their own combination to their own chains to get it off and follow suit. And I think that's what that beautiful example kind of does. And there's been people who have led us that way, and we're, probably going to lead others without even realizing a lot of the time, which is, it's great.
Yeah. And I think what you said is so important, because I think a lot of people went through that during the COVID era of like trying to shove things down people's throat. And this is the truth. Yeah. We've all been there. I've definitely been there too. And I think, it's such an important point to make, because we've all experienced that doesn't work. It never works. And now it's more about, we kind of have, when I say we, like my family, because my mum's very, she's been pivotal really in a lot of my awakening journey, just because again, it was like that, like seeing like her go through that and being like, okay, well, that's what's possible, and being able to question things. And now we just say like, we like to plant seeds. So we're not fearful about, because then there was also a stage too where when we were like really in it in 2021 and lockdown and stuff, where you were almost too scared to, like, I was living in Sydney still at the time, and like you're almost too scared to say something because we were the minority of people. And now, it's like whatever it may be, it's like just not being, there's no fear behind what we're saying, but there's also no like, you have to believe this, I'm telling you this and you have to believe this because this is the truth. It's like, no, I'm just going to leave this here and you do with it what you will. And I often think that like that person might not do anything with what you've given them for like years, but you just never know what will come of it. And at the end of the day, it's up to it's up to the individual. It's their own journey.
Yeah, the seeds are on an unconscious level, and like even bringing it back to the film or even this podcast or of any kind of medium that you're putting out there, you can only present the seeds to people, and if they want to take them, they'll take them. They may take them on a subconscious layer that they don't realize, or they turn it off at a specific point and go, no, I can't get past that point, sorry. And unfortunately, maybe some people's entire journey here is to not do that at all. Like they could just be having this completely removed, very 3D experience as, that's what they want to do. They need to stay in that, and their soul's got other learning to do that we're not aware of. That's fine too. Like there's no right or wrong answer to it. But I feel like the tide moves a certain way depending on what intention is getting put into the field. And if we're all doing that kind of consciously, I think other people follow suit without even realizing that they're following suit. It's like society and systems start to slowly change around them, and then their world slightly looks different. And because of that, their mood may shift, their emotional state may shift, and they don't know why. It's just that's what the world's doing, because that's where most people live. They live on that layer. And, they've got bills to pay. They've got the money system to worry about. That's just, they've got mouths to feed, whatever it might be. But it's leading the charge on different layers. And I think that there always is going to be a polarity no matter what's going on. There's always going to be the other side that is challenging something. And it's about not being emotionally swayed by that side or trying to get everyone on the same team. It's not about that. It's like, where are you and what are you doing? That's all that matters. And the rest is just noise,
Yeah, exactly. It's
it takes a sturdy hand and a solid gut though, because some of these truths that you awaken are very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They can make you feel like, oh, I can never go back to society. Everyone's going to laugh at me. They're going to think I'm crazy. But it's kind of like if you're at a party and you pick up a glass and you take a sip of it, and it's piss. You're like, oh shit, that's like, you can put it down, or everyone else is standing around sipping it thinking the same thing, but they're just like, no, this is actually just a bitter beer. Are you going to keep lying to yourself and trying to fit in with everyone else, or just be like, guys, this is piss, I'm not drinking that?
Yeah,
and then you'll get the inevitable.
Sorry. I love those social experiments that they do. Have you seen the ones where people go into waiting rooms and do the standing up and sitting down?
Yeah.
That sums up society for me in a nutshell. But I watch those things and I'm like, I would never stand up. I just know. Like,
Same,
if I was I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What are you doing?
It's so funny.
I don't know where that comes from, but it's just from somewhere. I don't know.
It's so funny. I was just talking about this with my girlfriend recently, and we were talking about those experiments, and there was one that they did where it was actually it was set up so that there was like, say there's like 5 people in a room. One was the test subject, and all of the other ones were controls, like they knew what they were doing. So they were shown something. So say it's like 1 dot on a piece of paper, and all 4 of the controls are like, oh, I see 3 dots, I see 3 dots, I see 3. And then it comes to the test subject and they're like, I see 3 dots. And they're like, you can see the confusion in their face, but they'll just go along with. So they did like a ton of these experiments to show that people are most likely, even when they know it's a lie, they'll just lie to agree. And I'm the same as you, Chris. Every time I see those experiments, I'm like, there's no way I would do that. I'm way too stubborn. That Taurian stubbornness in me just wouldn't let and I was also like super academic at school. So I pride myself on like being right, like getting questions right. And I'm like, if I know objectively that it's true, like I can't lie about it. Like I just couldn't.
Yeah, that's so fun. I'm exactly the same. And I think I'm a Capricorn as well, and I've got a rising Taurus. So that explains it.
Oh, how funny. I'm a Capricorn moon, Taurus sun, Capricorn moon. There you go. It's the earth in us. We just can't lie.
Yeah, but like I think everyone's got their own kind of approaches to it. I had people pleasing mentality when I was younger. Like there were still elements of it where I was a people pleaser, but never to my own kind of detriment. I couldn't get away from the truth. I couldn't like self-lie or do those kind of things. But it's just interesting to see, like on a grand scale, this is where you look at people at a fundamental level. Mostly they're good. They're actually really good because they're trying to not have their feelings hurt, or they don't want to upset someone else and go, oh, if I say 2, maybe they said 3, they'll look stupid because I'm correcting them and I don't want to correct them. So I sort of like, it's never a bad intention really, you know what I mean? It can be, but it's like mostly not. And I think we're all got strengths and weaknesses that we've got to learn from. And the more we're in situations where that gets challenged, the more we can forge like that new neural pathway in our brain and our new way of being to take that approach directly to something new. And then we're like, oh, okay, we stood up to that. It gets easier the second time. Let's keep doing that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the last 5 years have been a great training ground for all of us, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And
there's a lot of risk that comes with being the leader, being the first, or being the odd one out that says, no, guys, there's this many dots or whatever. It's like in SEER school in the military, it's like a POW training. The leader gets beat, like bruised, like just beaten in front of everybody, and then he's responsible for everybody. But that's the key. That's the greatness. It takes a strong person to do that, to be the leader and to take the responsibility and take the hits for other people without wanting them or hoping that they'll thank you for it later or anything. Like a leader is very, it's not just about me and like I acquire all this stuff, I get all the praise and attention. It's more about I'm setting the standard because I can't stand it to be any other way. I can't stand the lie. I can't stand the mediocrity and this whatever everyone's slogging around in this quagmire. I can't stand it. So I'm going to blaze a new trail. I have to. It's a compulsion.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to say too, because I was thinking about this after this conversation I had with my girlfriend, is that there is a part of it, like biologically, we are designed to stay with the herd. It's safety, it's security, it's what keeps us alive. And so it's not a bad thing in and of itself. It's the fact that it's been hijacked and used against us. because I was actually thinking about that a lot, where even just for people to have that understanding, people don't even, and this is why I think like this path of awakening, it really is about like self-inquiry is so important to start even questioning, not even just questioning your external reality, but starting to question things within yourself and go, well, why do I do that? Why am I being triggered by that? Why am I, more prone to doing things like this that don't serve me, or like whatever it may be? Because that's a huge one. When you start to understand that, yes, there's this part of us that's wired to stay with the herd. It's like community and family. We're social beings. We literally, like, we can't survive just purely on our own. I mean, we probably could, but it's not, you're definitely not going to live like a very beneficial long life in complete solitude. But just knowing that part of us is being completely hijacked, and it's used as an assault on us to stay with the herd, and all these things that we're programmed to go along with that do not serve us at all.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I couldn't have said that any better myself. It's one of those things with the herd mentality as well. It comes back to a previous thing that you were saying, which is around, it's like, how do I even explain this? The herd mentality, it's like with the traumas that make us who we are now. You said something earlier where it was these things happen for you, not to you. And I think that's really a big step in terms of even when something is coming to you to make you set a boundary, to say no more beyond this point, and a healthy boundary at that, not necessarily a violent one or one that's done in emotion, but putting that healthy boundary down, setting those parameters, and then being able to see that scenario presented itself for you to better you as a soul and as a person and for your own growth. I mean, it mostly happens in hindsight, right? It doesn't happen at the time. It's why me, fucking, I can't, why is this happening right now? And you go into your fight or flight and everything else. But in the aftermath of it, if you look back at it, I think that's a really smart thing for people to do, is to look back at things that they've gone through and go, okay, what did I benefit from this? Did this make me a better person because that happened to me? And like with my own illness, where it was, I went to death's door and back, and knowing that at the time was the most horrific thing of my life. But looking back at it now, absolutely every step of it was totally necessary for me to be who I am today. And to give me the right tools to be able to move into my next phase and to do this project and do everything else. So I think everything has its purpose, and you can look at it one way or the other. Really easy to go into the negative skew and just go, it's all bad and this is all happening for bad reasons and it's nefarious and it's this. But I think if you look at everything with at least a little bit of positivity in it, you can make it work for you, because that's what shapes you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, like being able to look back, like for me, just as you were saying that, I just know that, again, that was a big learning curve for me, was when I was able to look back and look at when things were presenting themselves that, I was saying, why does this always happen to me? And like, this is so shit. And like looking back and just seeing that they were actually a signpost of how out of alignment I was in my life and within myself. And then I think it is so important to do that, so that when it does happen in the moment, you're more conscious to it, like you're more aware of it, and it being like, oh, okay, this isn't happening to me. This is presenting itself because I'm not in alignment here. Or, in terms of like, I'll use the example of physical illness, because this is a huge one. I think everyone can relate to this. How often do you get sick when you have just been go, 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 go? You're not looking after yourself. You're not taking time out. You're not spending time with your partner. And then you get really sick. Like that happens to so many people. It's so common. And so using that as a signpost of like, okay, I need to actually start looking after myself. I need to do these things that are nourishing me, and I need to take a step back from, a lot of the time it's work for a lot of people, and just being more aware of that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, I think it definitely is the most common. And it's the awareness of it. Like you can really go through those moments and give your power up to anything, whether it's an external deity, whether it's something outside of you, a doctor, whoever. And it's basically you're giving up all of it, saying you're the only person, or you're the only thing, or, that's all that can help me. Where at that time, it's like, everyone's going to have their own process. You can't broad brush it on how people push through. And some people have been through really horrible things. But it's a matter of, I always look at it like everything's temporary, even our existence here. You know what I mean? We're infinite in our soul, at our soul level, but this is all temporary. And it's like once you kind of remind yourself of that, it really pushes you into that present moment a lot quicker, where you're just like, all that matters is now. That's literally it. And then we've got things around us to remind us of that. Like personally, I've got a cat who reminded me of that, where it's that thing of you just watch them and they're just zoned out and they're in their zone in that meditative state. And I'm like, we could really learn from this. They're not worried about the last meal they had. They're not worried about what passed. They've sort of come to terms with it, culminated it, and they're just in their present, their present body. And I think, humans, it's harder because we're very complicated. We complicate things a lot. But once we're out of our heads and we lead with our heart more, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, I was thinking, so I definitely want to activate more people to get behind you and rally and support this vision and this project, both for you and I feel like you guys are very in line with what our mission is with our podcast. And how can people support you? How can we help get this project to completion? And
can you also explain, sorry, because I haven't asked, but I've already heard it a few times. Just explain what Anavasi means for our audience.
Yeah. Oh, sure. So the word came to me out of the blue one day. It was such an odd thing. It just appeared in my head. And I had the picture for it already that I drew. I drew it as a picture and I was like, okay, what's this word? And it does have Greek lineage. So I'm sure I've picked it up along the way somewhere, probably from my grandparents back in the day. And it actually translates directly to like ascent, as in not ascension, but the climb itself. And I looked at, everyone was using the word ascension a lot. And it was this thing of we're above. And I was like, I don't like this, like you're above other people mentality. And I was like, but the theme of it is correct because it's about the climb, which is hard work. It's extraordinarily difficult to go to the top of that. You can't see the top of that mountain, but you still got to keep climbing with faith in your heart and everything. And the reason I used Anavasi as a word was because if I used an English word, I feel like people would attach too much meaning to it. And I wanted it to be an idea. And the main idea of it is for me now, as I've anglicized it and made it the title of this film, it's not only about the climb. The main point is once you get to the top of a mountain and you plant your flag and you've done the job, you actually have to go back down again. And sometimes that can be just as hard to scale back down the mountain and reintegrate. Yeah. And I consider that integration process the most, the biggest learning curve of the entire film itself while I've been making it, but also one of the biggest themes in the film. So it's pretty much about the climb up and back. That's how I'd put it.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And I think even Mark Devine, who we had on recently, spoke about something very similar. He talks about the idea of the 5 mountains. Each mountain is something. And yeah, he kind of said like, a lot of people just circle around the mountain. They just keep going around and around and around. And he's like, because it takes like to actually climb the mountain and get to the top, it takes so much. And I love that your focus is on integration because we talk about that a lot on this show. It's about, reclaiming these lost parts of ourselves, these wounded parts of ourselves, these repressed parts of ourselves, and actually integrating them because in a lot of what we were talking about, even in this conversation, is like, especially during the awakening process, we tend to do the pendulum swing. We kind of go, this is wrong, so we're going to go the other side. And it's actually not about that. I mean, it can be part of the process to experience both sides of that swing, but it really is about coming to that middle point and integrating that because we are such multifaceted beings. We're doing a disservice to ourselves to just exist in sort of one element of anything.
Totally. And that's on every level. That's not even just about shadow work and all those themes, because I've listened to a lot of your podcasts as well, and I love the themes that you run through them because it's always so different and polarizing with different guests where it's the same themes but said differently, which is so cool. And I think on every layer, like, for example, if people go off and go and do ayahuasca or plant medicine, you can run away and escape to that and go and do it every week if you like. It's not really going to do a lot for you. It's like if you go through that process with it or whatever you choose to do, like as one of your spiritual modalities, the key point is, and where most of the work comes from, is once you've gone and seen all those amazing things and gone through that experience and that journeying, when you come back to a harsh reality of checking out at Woolworths or wherever the hell you are and going, holy shit, what is this? Like if you can move into those spaces and integrate the lessons that you took from there of those higher powers, whatever they might be, of love and all those high vibrational things, and reintegrate them back into your reality, that's where I think the work is. And that's what I think those things are for in my own personal experience. Every time I've done any kind of modality of any description, the most important part to me is coming back. It's never actually going there. Going there is easy, and then you can go and escape there if you like, live there forever and go and, you know, do it a million times. But I think the work is definitely in that integration for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you think about it in as an allegory with the westward expansion in America, and they're going from, let's say, the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains. Yeah, we want to climb, we want to ascend, right? Well, go ahead and ascend to the top of the Rocky Mountains and then try to stay there. You're going to be up there with the goats. You know, I hope you like goat meat because that's all you got. And then once you get over, then you get to California. Like you have to go over the mountain and down and through desert, and then you can get to California and the coast. Like, you know, it's not that great at the top all the time.
It's a good point to make.
It's such a great metaphor for what happens to us internally on our journey, as well as exactly that. It's like as within, so without. It's the same. It's the same thing around in that cycle where some of us do walk around our own mountain within and just do laps around it because it's too hard to climb it, and that's where we stay for a while and whatever else. And again, once you get to the top and you elevate, you can't stay there. There's like no reality of it. You know what I mean? You have to come back, and I think it's about everyone wants to unplug from the matrix, and that's 100% a good thing. But it's also a matter of, like, you look at even the Matrix as a film, and it's like Neo goes between worlds with ease. That's where he finishes. That's what happens. He's able to do it even with no vision. And he comes into it and he's able to integrate every single part of that simulation with that outer world and bring them together as one cogent thing and coexist simultaneously in both worlds. And it's the most beautiful thing ever. That's where I want to be. Like, I think we're all aiming to get there. And I don't know if we ever do, but it's like the journey's a ride in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's funny. It's such a good place to end it too. And I just want to leave it on this because I think Isaac introduced me to this quote. I think, is it Robert Kiyosaki that says it? Someone about there's three sides to a coin. And the middle is where you want to exist, where you can see both sides and you're not polarized and you've got this like bird's eye view. And yeah, I think that speaks to that so beautifully. I actually got cold shivers when you were saying that because it's about being able to, go between these different worlds and not get caught in it, not get, stuck in it, not be super influenced by any which way and just be really centered and grounded in yourself. That's where everything needs to begin. Yeah,
100%. Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, that came from Buckminster Fuller. So Robert Kiyosaki back in the 60s was a bit of a hippie, and he hitchhiked all his way, I think, to upstate New York somewhere to go and sit with Buckminster Fuller and learn from him. And he's one of the early awake folks. And Bucky Fuller would say there's three sides. There's heads, tails, and then the edge. And the edge is intelligence, where you can see both sides.
Yeah, I love it. I can't wait till someone does a coin toss next and goes heads or tails. I'm going to go, I'm the edge. I'm going to be the edge.
I love it so much. Well, I've absolutely loved this conversation with you, Chris. I honestly feel like we could talk for hours. It's been so much fun. Please let our audience know how they can get involved, where they can find some more of your work, and help to fund the film if they're interested.
Yeah, sure. So the funding's still open on our first platform. So there'll be a couple of these, but the first one's still open. You can find it at anavasi.tv, ANAVASI. And everything else is basically, if you Instagram or YouTube or any of those, Christopher K Film. And you're able to pretty much find everything from those two elements. But yeah, still looking for any contribution will help. Like, I know people go, $5 won't help. It will. It all goes into the same kind of outcome energetically from the right people. And we're still open to new executive producers coming on board who want to, open to heavily investing as well. And all the contact details are on the website too.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and I encourage everyone to go check out some of your short films. They're beautifully shot. The audio is amazing. Put headphones on and listen to it. It's so well, all the audio engineering and the visuals and the storyline. That's the other thing. We'll talk on another episode. I want to have you back and we'll talk about story. Sure. But go support what you like or it goes away. But it's especially important to support awake conscious individuals and align our energies, and let's work together, and this will flourish and grow faster.
Yeah. And we'll have all the links in the show notes. Definitely recommend. We both watched Grace, and it was so refreshing to actually watch something that told a story without product placement, without
even a lot of words. The way that the story was told was so
beautiful.
Well done.
Thank you so much. And honestly, guys, thank you for having me on. This has been such a blast, and I'll come back anytime. I absolutely love your podcast and love what you're doing. You're both awesome.
Thank you for listening to Natural AF. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed recording it and putting it out there for you. These episodes are a lot of fun. They're always packed with some kind of gold nugget or something valuable that you can share with family or friends, someone in your friend circle that might get a lot out of this. If you're following us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to give us a rating or review. That goes a long way to helping boost the show, and that actually makes it come up in more people's feeds and spreads the word and makes us easier to find. We appreciate everyone's effort and support for helping the show grow, and we will see you next week on Natural AF.